here, and welcome to the Munchkin Minute, your bi-weekly look into some tabletop gaming news and more. I'm your host, Dan, a Board Game Man, and this is your news for January 6th, 2025. So not a whole lot of news. I kind of have to catch up from some news that I wasn't able to get into last year's. So there's a couple things that have already been released and some news that I just kind of held on to because some of the releases aren't till later this year. And we don't really have a whole lot of, it's not really a lot of crowdfunding because this is kind of the time of the year when there's not a whole lot of crowdfunding. Basically, the holidays and then the early January, there's not a whole lot of good crowdfunding games. There's a lot of, if you're an RPG fan, there's a lot of different supplements and things like that you can check out. And if you like to print out really sexy STL miniatures, go for it. There's some great things on there. There's a whole, as usual, there's a whole lot of things on crowdfunding as far as Kickstarter and such. But I'm sure that in the coming months, there'll be some really good board games that will be back on crowdfunding. So I'll get them on there once we get to it. So let's start off with a few new products. Mostly, we got some early ones here or some expansions. So first up, Asmodee has got 3 new releases for The Witcher Old World, which is a great, great game. This will be out this month. The first one is The Witcher Old World Monster Trail. This has got more cards, some exploration events. So you've got a lot of monster trailing, plenty of fighting, great deck building cards for your kind of regular, as you're kind of playing and fighting. Those are all, that's kind of how the deck building goes. This game's really good. Hard to explain, but it is kind of grand and huge, just like you would want a Witcher game to be. There's another Witcher that's in that box as well, and some advanced monster abilities. That one is $50. The Witcher Old World Wild Hunt. This has got some cooperative mode. Now, they've already I think they already put something out like this as well, and a solo mode. So this one kind of changes up how co-op and solo works a little bit. I think it needed a little bit of change from the base game. Plus, this game is kind of one of these few games where it doesn't really work ridiculously well solo. It is kind of it's more fun to play this one with about 3 players. I think that's where it really shines, is kind of that 3-player area. And it does add some more miniatures and some more cards. And then that one is going to be $50 as well. And finally, there is an adventure pack that's for the Witcher Old World that's got about 200 new cards, some new companions, some new obstacles, equipment, and some other mechanics there. And I believe they have, just some more punch board and such. I don't think there's any miniatures to this one. And that one is only $30 to get in on that one. So there's 3 great things to add to an already amazing game. So let's stick with expansion news. We're going to go to Unexpected Games is going to release an expansion for the Mandalorian Adventures. This was a really cool game that came out last year. Not really anything new, but also not anything bad. So this is a really kind of cool game to play through like the first season of Mandalorian. Now, the new one here takes it to the next season. This is Mandalorian Adventures Clan of 2 with Mando and Grogu. There's going to be some new characters and new scenarios to play in this one. This is $40, but the base game is needed to play this one as well. Next up, Avalon Hill is releasing HeroQuest First Light. This is going to be kind of an intro to the new edition, or basically an intro to that new edition that came out to the old classic dungeon crawl game. This one is going to be exclusive at Target. I think it's going to be exclusive for a little while. It should be out this month, but I'm guessing that in a few months it'll be out to other FLGSs. But it's $50, which seems to be a bit much for an intro game. But HeroQuest is a really solid game, so I really can't complain too much there. So next up, we've got Dranda Games. They're going to be releasing a new kind of drafting game called Explorers of Navoria. This one will be out this month, $40. It's an interesting one because it's kind of a tableau drafting. You're going to be pulling kind of actions out of a bag, and then you're going to be kind of using those actions to draft different cards to help power up your abilities. It's very, very colorful. It almost kind of has that, I don't think it's the same artist as Root, but it has that kind of look to it. A little bit there, but this one looks pretty cool. It does have some, they're saying it's a lighter to medium game, but I do like how when you're drafting the actions, that's going to help to, change how you're playing the game. I always like kind of player abilities. So as you're drafting these different cards, it's going to be changing how you play the game. So this one should be a cool light to medium, maybe kind of a next level game, not quite a gateway game, but a next level game. And they say this one is for 2 to 4 players, and it plays in about an hour and a half. And of course, that one, like I said, is Explorers of Navoria. Gigamic will release Slide, a new card game. And this is a card game. This will be released in March of this year. So this is an interesting one. So I've been playing a lot of these different card games between like Scout, Trio, of course, is great, and Gap. Now this one is Slide. Now this one, you kind of have a grid of 4x4 cards that have numbers from 1 to 10, and everybody has their own grid in front of them. And then you're kind of flipping over a card, putting it in the middle, and then you're drafting numbers from the cards that people have revealed. And then as you get them, you're going to slide the cards from the side, from one of the sides, to close that gap. And what you're really trying to do is at the end of the game, you want like cards to be next to each other because they're going to cancel each other out and then be removed. And the numbers that you have left is your score, and you want the lowest score left over at the end of that one. I believe this one's only about $15. I didn't see a price that I could see, but I think this is a small card game, so it's probably only about $10 to $15 there. But it looks really cool. Again, if you're kind of like me, where the holidays brings this out of me, where I love playing these kind of card games with family and friends. So much fun. But anyway, that is going to be a fun one to pick up. Next up, Manor Games has released Set a Watch Doomed Run. Now, the thing I like about Set a Watch is the theme is pretty cool. It's all about an adventuring party that is kind of camping for the night, and you're setting a watch. Now, that seems really bleh, but it's actually a lot better than it sounds. This here, the Doomed Run, is a big box with a campaign and all the previous Set a Watch offerings. That's going to be out, or that's already been out late last year. This will be about $75. It should be out in retail now, and I think it should be a fun one to do, especially if you like kind of the idea of this game. I know that seems like a lot, but you're going to get everything, and this new version has a kind of campaign to play it in. So if you do like those kind of card games, this will be an interesting one to check out, or just check out Set a Watch. Manor Games does a good job with their card games, and the regular base game Set a Watch would be a fun one just to try out there. Now, I talk about UVS games for the UVS CCG. I talk about this a lot, but they've placed the Attack on Titan Apocalypse as a new booster set for the Universe of CCG. It's in pre-order now, as well as they released the Star Trek Below Deck set. I got a deck of it, and it's really cool. I really like these cards, and if you like Below Decks, you're going to really like this kind of set. They're all really pretty compatible, but this one is pretty cool. They sent me an early set for the Below Decks. I haven't seen I have the Attack on Titan Apocalypse, but I haven't gotten into that one yet. But the Below Decks one is really cool. But definitely, if you like that kind of CCG, it's kind of one where it's just a fun one to get into play. They have a lot of themed decks that you can use, so you don't really have to get into crazy deck building. You could just grab one of their regular decks and just go from there. So check that one out as well. Next up, Renegade Game Studios has teased the Battle for the Deep, powered by the Axis and Allies, which is basically how they titled that. But anyway, Battle for the Deep, powered by Axis and Allies. That's going to be out in March. Should be about $60. And basically, this is Axis and Allies under the sea. So if you already like Axis and Allies, this is going to be kind of your Axis and Allies under the sea. Kind of basically a new theme with some updating. So it looks pretty cool there too. Capstone Games and Czech publisher Albi are partnering to bring Tea Garden to North America this year. This one will be released in May. I'm not quite sure the price on this one. I think this one looks to be about $50 to $60. I was trying to find some pre-release, but I'll try to get into the show notes, try to find a release for you for the show notes, but that one looks good. So anyway, this one is going to be an interesting one to watch because it's designed by Tomas Holek, and there's many, many people put his other game, SETI, on their Game of the Year for last year, on their Game of the Year list from Czech Games, from GGE. He also did Galileo Galilei, which has gotten a lot of good buzz around it, but SETI is one that many people are saying is Game of the Year for him. So in this one, you're building up your deck of cards and trying to increase the power of your different actions as you kind of play them. You're basically building your own tea garden, for lack of a better, it's called tea garden, so you're making a tea garden. But you're trying to get your actions, you're culling some cards from your deck, you're trying to play your actions as strong as possible and getting rid of your weaker cards. So it seems pretty cool. It's medium to heavier, but not as heavy as some of his other ones like SETI, like I said, but people have mentioned it. It's still pretty long of a game. They've got it listed here as only 90 to 120, so about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And it's probably like lighter to medium weight, but not quite as not quite as heavy as some of those others. And finally, WizKids has announced an interesting Dungeons & Dragons game called Edge of the Realms. It's Edge of the Realms, Fields of Faerun. This is a map building game designed by Phil Walker Harding. He did Baron Park, Gizmos, and Imhotep. Some great games there. So this should be a pretty fun game. But just the fact that you're building a map, It's an interesting little theme. Not a whole lot is known out there, but you're basically drawing map cards into your hand. You're choosing a card to placing it down, and then everybody's releasing map cards and adding them to their maps. And then you're trying to get your quest completed and such. And then I think the whole idea here is maybe you make a map that you may want to use in your RPG campaign, your D&D campaign. So it looks pretty cool there. Very cheap, only $25 to get into this one. So I think this might be an interesting little take on that whole genre. So I hope you enjoyed everything this weekend. Thanks for joining me. If you see any news you think I would like to feature, shoot me a message at GeekJockDan on Twitter. And check out MajorSpoilers.com for more content by Steven and the rest of Major Spoilers crew. And of course, check out my show, The Geek All-Stars Podcast. As always, I'm Dan, the Board Game Man, and I'll see everyone in a couple weeks for another Munchkin Minute.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.